What is Assyrian Martyrs' Day? First, it's about martyrs, those who put themselves in harm's way for a greater good, something that is bigger than themselves, something that involves their belonging to a greater group than themselves. Second, it involves Assyrians, their history, their culture, their language, and their beliefs. Assyrian Martyrs' Day is not specifically about one occurrence, though one occurrence did play a role in the formation of the commemoration of Martyrs' Day. It is rather a commemoration for all the martyrdoms given in the name of preserving the collective Assyrian existence at the expense of the lives of those particular martyrs. A martyr is not someone who seeks death. A martyr is seeking life and existence in peace. He is seeking a faith, a culture, an attachment to a land, a civilization. He or she has decided, or it has been decided for them, that one's individual life is to be surrendered, to put in harm's way, for the life of the whole. Today we recall the sacrifices of all of our martyrs, those who stood tall defending the walls of Nineveh in 612 BC, and whose bones we can view today. Those who gave their lives so that their faith could live on, and those that gave of themselves so that their people could have a chance at peace and freedom in modern times. As we recall these martyrs in our history, there is a term that we should always venerate, semele. What is semele? The word semele is at the root of our Martyrs' Day. Indeed, the very idea of our martyrs came from the tragic and heroic story of Semele. It is important to recall the story of Semele and to realize what it means for us today. In 1933, the Assyrians were faced with few choices. They had fought for the Allies, namely the British, and were being surrounded by hostile forces after the British began to depart Iraq, leaving the Assyrians in an uncertain future. Persecution and violence was, of course, a recent experience for the Assyrians. They had suffered much during the First World War earlier, losing about 2/3 of their numbers to massacres, war, famine, and disease. Having gone through such times, the Assyrians were again being challenged. This time, it was the newly formed Iraqi government being supported by Britain. Some Assyrians, given a choice after their patriarch Mar'i Sheshamun was exiled to Cyprus by the Iraqi government, decided to leave to Syria and to seek asylum there. When they returned to gather their families, they were met by an Iraqi force that tried to stop them. A battle ensued, and the Assyrians, despite the overwhelming odds, came out victorious. The Assyrian defeat of the Iraqi army sparked hatred and hostility toward the Assyrians. In the village of Semele, where the Assyrians had surrendered their arms and sought protection of the Iraqi government to not only save their lives, but the lives of their entire nation, the Iraqi army machine-gunned young Assyrian men, women, and children all around Semele in over 63 villages. Innocent Assyrians were assassinated by the military led by one Bakr Sidqi and their supporters. Over 3,000 Assyrians were killed. According to Colonel Stafford, quote, "The Assyrians had no fight left in them, partly because of the state of mind to which the events of the past week had reduced them, largely because they were disarmed. Had they been armed, it seems certain that the Iraqi army would have hesitated to take them on in a fair fight. Having disarmed them, they proceeded with the massacre according to plan. Their opponents were helpless, and there was no chance of any interference from any quarter whatsoever. Machine gunners set up their guns outside the windows of the houses in which the Assyrians had taken refuge, and having trained them on the terror-stricken wretches in the crowded rooms, fired among them until not a man was left standing in the shambles." In some other instance, the bloodlust of the troops took a slightly more active form, and the men were dragged out and shot or bludgeoned to death. End of quote. Many writers have described a proud people in despair and panic, cowering in fear after the massacres. When all was said and done, and a church of martyrs came to rest on the site of Semele. It became for us Assyrians a call to unity and a stronger sense of identity, an identity built on the sacrifices of heroes. Poems and songs were sung and written. A new symbol, one that began as a tragedy, became one of struggle and victory. We lost lives but regained our collective soul. We shed blood and tears but became renewed with hope in realizing that among us were heroes who gave their lives to save their nation. Semele became a symbol of resistance and power, and of course inspired a commemoration and celebration of the Assyrian Martyrs' Day. It made us think not only of what happened that August in 1933, but what came before, thousands of years before, to the fall of Nineveh, and years into the future, after Semele. Semele became independent of time and space. It became a thought that we carry with us today, tomorrow, forever. Semele has turned into a rallying call to venerate not only the massacre itself, but also to view it as a symbol of the necessity of sacrifice that became so apparent that August of 1933. Our commemoration of Martyrs' Day, so vividly personified in its physical form in the Semele massacre, has spanned the entirety of our history. So much has been given for us to remain as Assyrians today. How should we recall the martyrs throughout our history? How is it best to honor them? By recalling and honoring their memories, through upholding their goals, by never being indifferent to our existence as Assyrians. Much has been given to keep our Assyrian existence alive today. Let us always remember it.